What's going on, folks? Welcome to Penalty Talk. I'm JPeeps, and you know what we're doing today. FAMU Preseason Breakdown. So, today we're going to be breaking down players to watch, breaking down the schedule, what looks like a win, what looks like it could be a potential loss, FAMU's path to the SWAC Championship, how's the SWAC East going to be decided, Celebration Bowl. If FAMU makes it there, who is it likely that they'll play? I think I already said it, but yeah, offensive and defensive players to watch, impact freshmen, looking at who FAMU picked up in the transfer portal, all of it. And then also a couple questions there at the end before we wrap it up. So without further ado, as you know, intro's next. Don't go anywhere. Get comfortable. Let's go. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. And also, yes, I am outside today. Don't worry, I'm not crazy to where I would come outside without a fan. Don't worry, it's blowing on me. Best believe that. But let's dive right into it. So first week 1, or week 0 technically, season opener against North Carolina, the Tar Heels last year. They went 6-7, 3-5 in the ACC. They added defensive back Jacoby Cohen from Ohio State, defensive lineman LeJon Cavosas from Ohio State as well. They were pretty into Ohio State with the transfer portal, honestly. Also added Noah Taylor from University of Virginia, UVA, offensive tackle Zach Rice, defensive lineman, one of their top prospects coming in. He's a 5-star. Defensive lineman Travis Shaw as well. He's also a top freshman coming in. I believe he's like a 4 or 5-star. And then also returning, I think honestly this kid's going to end up being their starting quarterback, Drake May. He's 6'5", 200-plus pounds. He is going to be the heir to Sam Howell and company in North Carolina, in Chapel Hill. And then also Josh Downs is also another impact player that they have coming in. Quite honestly, with North Carolina, look, I know that they didn't have a good year in the ACC Coastal last year, but I think that, Mac Brown is one of the better coaches in the country. He's going to right the wrongs with North Carolina and get the ship steered in the right direction, I think. And I know everybody feels that this is a game that can potentially be an upset, and I get it. I'm all for that. But I don't think that this ends up being an upset. I think this is going to be FAMU's first loss of the season, and the reaction to this is going to be one of, oh my gosh, sheer shock and panic. If you ask me, everybody's going to be overreacting and stuff, thinking like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? They're going to get killed next week against Jackson State. Look, the same thing happened when people were overreacting and stuff to the whole thing with when they lost to UCF in such a lopsided fashion. Everybody was like, why is it? Why did that happen? Why? Oh my gosh. My answer to that is relax. You're looking way too deep into this. I understand. I'm all for, like I said, pulling the upsets and stuff, but relax, calm down. The sky's not falling. You still have prospectively 12 other games that you can play. That's what you need to realize. Like, you're in good hands. It's okay. This looks good actually on a resume too, as far as trying to make the playoffs. So with that being said, we now fast forward to September 4th, Labor Day weekend against Jackson State in the Orange Blossom Classic. So first things first, before I dive into this, the whole thing of, oh my gosh, Jackson State's going to win by 3 possessions or something like that's a load of crap, honestly, if you ask me, because the last 3 matchups have been decided by 1-possession games. 2014, Hail Mary, 1-possession game. 2016, oh no, not 2016, my fault. 2018 in Bragg, 1-possession game. Didn't get the field goal team out in time. And then what else happened after that? Orange Blossom Classic last year, 1-possession game, little 1-point game at that. These games are very much decided by 1 possession or more. I don't see Jackson State running away. I know they made a lot of additions, such as, and actually this one was actually pretty genius, Tim Brewster, who comes over from Florida. And if you know about Tim Brewster, he is a master recruiter. I believe he's a tight ends coach as well. He was responsible for Dan Mullen's short-lived success at Florida before Dan Mullen got canned. He was responsible. He had a key piece in recruiting and coaching up the tight ends at Florida State the year Florida State won the national title. So, yes, having Tim Brewster is a huge added bonus. Also, too, as far as players goes, inside linebacker Antonio Doyle Jr. from Texas A&M, the athlete Kevion Mullins from South Carolina, wide receiver Cameron Buckley from Indiana, wide receiver and DB, and the #1 recruit in the country, Travis Hunter, linebacker Michael Police from Southern Miss, who actually picked Jackson State over FAMU. I know those were his last 2 options. And then Syvion Wilkerson, the running back from Delaware State, who I think will have a better chance at winning a championship now that he's at Jackson State. Honestly, I think probably he died and went to football heaven going from cold and barren Delaware State and then going to Jackson, Mississippi. Also, as far as returning players goes, you have both Shiloh and Shador. Shador is the quarterback. He'll be the starter without a doubt. Shiloh starting in the secondary, leading the charge. Also, too, you have defensive backs Isaiah Bolden and Nugget Warren, both coming back. You also have Aubrey Miller, who's an SEC transfer out of Missouri. All of those guys are impact players. I know they lost James Houston, who is the Florida transfer to the NFL, got drafted by the Detroit Lions. They also lost Warren Newman. So they're still in good hands. But this is going to be probably the toughest team I think FAMU will play the whole season in the SWAC, quite honestly. I do think that, and this is coming from a place of sheer having looked at the Celebration Bowl and stuff, they got destroyed. They flat out got destroyed. They got bullied. At one point, we saw dudes getting tossed. Quite honestly, I think that FAMU can win this game, but I've also played out scenarios where I think Jackson State can win this game. I think it is going to be another 1-possession game, most definitely. The other thing I will say is there's a lot of film out there in Jackson State now. There's a full season's worth of film, and I think South Carolina State put out the best tape as far as how to play them and defend them. You have to get physical with them. You can't be intimidated by the stars that these guys have, which, in my opinion, don't mean anything, quite honestly. Stars don't mean a thing to me, personally. They're determined by some guys on a computer that handle recruiting rankings. Speak of the devil. Not an indictment on myself, or anybody else. But honestly, yeah, that's what they're determined by, in my opinion. So at the end of the day, I think, Willie Simmons will have a plan. And I think part of the QB battle will be in that plan of how they play Jackson State. But I'm going to go ahead and say it like this. I think FAMU can beat Jackson State. So I think this is a W. I think that you end a 3-game losing skid to Jackson State in Miami on Labor Day weekend. I think the script might get flipped this year, honestly. I think with this loss, if FAMU can control their destiny from here on out, I think you might see Jackson State end up in the FCS playoffs. I really do. And I think from there, Deion's going to go in, possibly if he does end up going to the FCS playoffs, he's going to go in with the mentality thinking we need to go win this whole thing. And quite frankly, I would be rooting for them. I'd root for them, honestly, if they got in the FCS playoffs. Because then Deion thinking that he could win the FCS playoffs will change the outlook of how that fan base feels about the FCS playoffs, I think. Because if Coach Prime wants to go win it, hell, you're going to want to go win it too. But again, what do I know? I'm just a guy behind the computer. And then that takes us to Albany State, September 10th, the home opener. So Albany State last year made the Division II playoffs. This is a pretty dangerous team. You cannot sleep on them. Last year they went 10-2, 6-0 in the SWAC. They added QB Caleb Johnson, defensive back, Luther Wooler, defensive back as well, Tyler Belcher, offensive lineman Ashton Donald, and they're returning their quarterback Deontay Bonio. So quite honestly, yeah, this is a dangerous game, but I think Willie Simmons will have his team motivated. They can't get, regardless of what happens in the Orange Blossom Classic, you can't get too full of yourself. And if you lose, you can't think the sky's falling. You have to bounce back because this is a big game. And then if you win, you can't get too cocky either. This is, like I said, still a very big game. And I think Willie Simmons does a great job of having this team focused and mentally ready and mentally tough. So I do think that this is also going to be a win for FAMU. So with that being said, FAMU now moves on to 2-1. Still looking pretty good in the driver's seat. That takes you now to the very next week as well. Alabama A&M, September 24th. This is also the next home game. This is also, I think, honestly, here in the first few weeks, this will decide the SWAC East. The SWAC East may honestly be decided here in the first few weeks. As crazy as that is to say. Because Alabama A&M, they're going to have a say in all of this too. I know I said it at the end of the season after the Southeast Louisiana game, there's an arms race brewing between Jackson State and FAMU. But honestly, you could throw Alabama A&M in there as well as far as teams in the East. They added, well, last year they went 7-3, 5-3 in the SWAC. They added defensive lineman Jonathan King from Indiana, running back Donovan England from Michigan State. That's a nice pickup, actually. Damn. Wide receiver Jeremiah Payton from Miami. Also to wide receiver Darren Turner from Arkansas. Defensive lineman Nick Lewis from University of Kentucky. Wide receiver Isaiah Cox from Ohio. They loaded up big time on trying to find some new outlaws wide receivers. I still think the Rack Boys 2.0 is better, but I digress. Returning wide receiver Abdul Fattah Ibrahim will lead the charge, possibly. And then also, too, you have wide receiver Terrell Gardner. Quite honestly, look, I mean, I know they're going to have a QB ready to roll, but I think it did kind of hurt them to have Jaron Williams take a step back and leave for his own personal reasons as far as mental health, which is a very big deal. And we wish him well. I understand. Look, if you need to step away and you got to go focus on yourself, by all means, step away and go focus on yourself. Your health and risking your health is not worth it. Go work on yourself, get yourself right, by all means. But all in all, I think the benefit of having this game at home works in FAMU's favor. So I think this is a win. I think this will move FAMU now to 3-1 on the year. And then that'll lead you into another home game. And you don't even leave. You've only left Florida for one game at this point. That was the North Carolina game. And I think that moves you on to October 1st against Mississippi Valley. Mississippi Valley last year, 4-7, 3-5. They're going to be a tough outing. I know last year I said I wasn't going to waste my time with this game because, looking at it on paper, I felt like this was a blowout. And then knowing Mississippi Valley's luck as of late, I didn't think much of them. But then it turned into a 31-28 win. So, honestly, I can't take them lightly. They added wide receiver Cedric Moffitt II from Jackson State, defensive back Malcolm Johnson from Langston, quarterback Jamari Jones, who's a JUCO transfer that I think could end up having a pretty good year in the SWAC. We'll see. Also, defensive back Frederick Smith from Southern Miss. They returned running back Caleb Johnson and wide receiver Ja'Cory Rankin. This is going to be an interesting season for Mississippi Valley, all in all, quite honestly. But at the end, too, I think, again, playing at home is an added motivation for FAMU. And I think this is also a win. So at this point, heck, that's pretty impressive. You come a long way since losing to North Carolina. At this point, you've already got to win over Jackson State, Albany State, Alabama A&M, and now you got to win over Mississippi Valley State. You're sitting pretty at 4-1. and that takes you for a road trip on October 8th to South Carolina State. The HBCU national champs will be hosting FAMU in Orangeburg. Last year they went 7-5, 5-0 in the MEAC. QB Zan Dunham, linebacker Jaden Jones, returning wide receiver Shaquan Davis, and also quarterback Corey Fields Jr., who were both the saviors of, or really, quote unquote, both the impact players of the Celebration Bowl. They're both returning as well. This offense, it feels like Corey Fields Jr. has been at South Carolina State forever, but this is going to be a tougher outing than everybody anticipates. You know, they've read the clippings and stuff. You know, they realize, look, we lost to FAMU. We got beat by them pretty good in Tallahassee, a place that they've been very successful in for the last couple of years. Buddy P's been very successful there the past couple of years. They realize that, and then they realize now too they're going to have to beat FAMU, who is going to be a very powerful team coming in there this year in Orangeburg. And quite honestly, I think this could be a preview of what the Celebration Bowl could look like. So quite honestly, it'll be a hard-fought game, much like it was in 2019 when FAMU went in there and won 42-38. But I do think that FAMU can pull this one out. So I think that this is a win as well. So you were sitting there at 4-1. Now you're 5-1, going to go meet Grambling. So fast forwarding to Grambling, October 15th. Last year they went 4-7, 3-5. Key additions, of course, Hugh Jackson is the key addition to keep an eye on here. Quarterback Kaijah Holloway, who's the transfer from UCLA. I think that's their starter. Chance Amin comes in from Syracuse. Offensive lineman Wallace Unaba, who's the JUCO transfer as well. Wide receiver Ryan Peppins, and also one of their top wide receiver pickups in this class. I believe he's a 3 or 4 star, Tyson Bordio. And then also 2 wide receiver Fazion Wilson, all key pieces coming into Grambling. Hugh Jackson's he's hit the ground running, honestly. And then also you have returning running backs CJ Russell and Maurice Washington, both coming back as well. So I think that they'll be better than 4-7 this year. I have a lot of expectations. I know I give the Grambling crowd a hard time when I say Hugh Jackson couldn't even hold Mike Tomlin's jockstrap in the AFC. But quite honestly, the one thing that he brings in with him is the fact that he is a very experienced coach. He knows how to prepare you for the next level, and he's going to do that with these guys in Grambling. So quite honestly, I like where this is headed. I still think that they're a year away, but quite honestly, I do think that FAMU gets the W here as well. And would you look at that? You're 6-1 going into homecoming. You're now 6-1 going into homecoming to meet Arkansas Pine Bluff. Last year, Arkansas Pine Bluff went 2-9, 1-7 in the SWAC. They added defensive back Kevin Compton from Arkansas, defensive back Juan Keith Akin Jr. from Buffalo, defensive lineman R.J. Evans, who's a JUCO transfer, defensive back Laprel Boyd, who's a JUCO transfer, and quarterback Chance Edwards. And they returned Skylar Perry. Look, honestly, I know I said that last year this was going to be one of the teams that could possibly compete for the SWAC West. And I know I shouldn't say, a team is going to get beat. FAMU's 21-5 on homecoming since Billy Joe's second season in 1995. And quite honestly, out of hell with it. Yeah, I think FAMU wins this game. FAMU's going to win this game. FAMU's going to be 22-5 on homecoming since 1995 after it's all said and done. So this will be a homecoming win. FAMU's going to coast. And would you look at that? Still, far cry from where you started, where you were 0-1 against UNC. Because now you've ripped off wins against Jackson State, Albany State, Alabama A&M, Mississippi Valley, South Carolina State, Grambling. That had you at 6-1. Now you're sitting pretty at 7-1 after a win against Arkansas Pine Bluff, and you're heading into senior day of the very next week to play Southern Jaguars, who is also very active in the transfer portal and making some key additions. Last year, they went 4-7, 3-5 in the SWAC. They added wide receiver August Petrie III from Rice, linebackers Stefania Maia from Colorado, wide receiver Cassius Allen from Louisiana, defensive end linebacker Josiah Greathouse, who's a JUCO transfer, linebacker Dante Starks, who comes in from LSU. That's a pretty nice lineup. Coach Dooley did pretty good. He did pretty good. It's going to be interesting to see how fast he could turn Southern around, because I think Prairie View is going to take a step back. So I'm curious to see how this goes and everything. Also, too, they returned their star defensive end, and a guy I think should get drafted, much like Isaiah Land, is Jordan Lewis. So they return him. So I think he's gonna want to go out with a bang. I think again he should get drafted. I think the thing working in FAMU's favor is that this game is at home. As well too, if you look at the last two games, they've been barn burners. They've come down to the final minutes, 2019 especially, 27-21 final. Last year, I believe it was a 29-17 final in Baton Rouge. So this is going to be interesting. I think it's going to be a one-possession game, honestly, towards the end. These games are always barn burners. This is a rivalry between FAMU and Southern. I think what works for FAMU is the fact that they have Southern coming to them. And by this point in the season, to November, we're going to know what Southern is. We're going to know if they're pretenders or if they are in fact contenders in that SWAC West. So we're going to learn a lot about Southern. But this will not be an easy game. No game in the SWAC will be easy this season, if you ask me. You're going to have to bring it every week. It is like a black SEC. But I do think FAMU gets a win here on Senior Day. I think at this point, FAMU will once again go undefeated at home. And, oh, my gosh, if you look at it, honestly, that's what you win against Albany State. You beat Alabama A&M. You beat Mississippi Valley. You beat Arkansas Pine Bluff, and then you close it out with a win against Southern. You're already 10-0 at home since 2019. Mind you, you didn't play in 2020. So winning 5 more games, that brings the total to 15-0 at home since 2019, which would be very damn impressive, quite honestly. So I like FAMU's chances at that point. So, you're sitting there, 7-1, 8-1. You're sitting there pretty 8-1 going into Alabama State. I know they added their new head coach down over there in Montgomery, Eddie Robinson Jr., I believe his name is. I know he's not related to legendary coach Eddie Robinson, but this I think will be another tough outing. I know they renovated their facilities as well. They got new turf down. So Alabama State last year 5-6, 3-5. In the SWAC, a couple of key additions include quarterback Demetrius Davis from Auburn. Excellent move, quite honestly. Tight end Jalen Lay from Clemson. Wide receiver Levante Chenault. I'm actually curious if he's related to the Jaguars wide receiver Laviscus Chenault. Also, wide receiver Quentin Tobar from Mississippi State. Tight end Jace Medlock. Wide receiver and tight end Darius Edmonds as well from Houston. And then they also returned 2 key running backs, Ja'Cory Merritt, who actually I believe led that team in rushing last season, and then also 2 running back Jeremiah Hickson, who could be a sleeper behind Ja'Cory Merritt. Quite honestly, I really don't know if they'll improve in year 1 right away, but I do like the key additions that A. Robinson Jr. has made. Do I think that they win the Magic City Classic? I don't know. Let's wait and see. But again, I think that with the Florida Classic looming the week after this, it's easy to look ahead. But again, I trust Willie Simmons and his staff to keep these guys focused on the task at hand, to not look ahead a week. If anything, I think this is where we kind of see FAMU maybe hit their stride, quite honestly, going into the Florida Classic. So I do think that Alabama State is going to be a W. I think you go into Montgomery and you get the job done. You're sitting pretty there now at what, 9-1 going into the Florida Classic. So yeah, sitting pretty 9-1 going into the Florida Classic. Last year you beat Bethune Cookman, you beat the brakes off of them, 46-21. I felt like FAMU left a lot of points on the board. I felt like this should have probably been like a 57-21 type of final. Yeah, honestly, I think, 57-14, 58-14 is what I felt the final should have been. And quite honestly, I think, okay, yeah, it's nice we beat them last year, but we got to improve. You got to improve on it. You got to build on that. You have to kind of establish order. You need to go out there and flex your muscles again this year. Last year, Bethune Cookman went 2-9, 2-6 in the SWAC. They added Walter Simmons, the ECU transfer, as well as to the former Jackson State QB and former Gator quarterback, Jalen Jones, as well, comes in. And then they also added two wide receiver, Akeem Hayes from the University of Kentucky. And then they have returning tight end, Kamari Everett, who is going to be – I feel like he'll be more utilized this year. So I'm honestly expecting more out of Bethune Cookman this year, better than 2-9. I don't think that they'll repeat that again this season. I wouldn't assume with these additions that they've made. They're going to have a serious QB battle, though, between Walter Simmons from ECU and Jalen Jones from coming in from the community college ranks and coming back to the HBCU level at Bethune Cookman. But all in all, I think FAMU, they do it again, I think, for the second year in a row. And with momentum building at 9-1, you're going to achieve your first 10-win season since 1999 and get a W here. So you're 10-1, ending the regular season. So quite honestly, at that point, 10-1, I think really you didn't lose a conference game. You have a great shot at playing for or having home field advantage in the SWAC title game. So quite honestly, as we fast forward the next week, SWAC Championship. And here we are. Who do you meet in the SWAC Championship? Quite honestly, I think that the SWAC title will be determined, or not the SWAC title, the SWAC West title might come down to the Bayou Classic, if I'm being honest, because of the dually factor and the power shift that I feel like just happened in the SWAC West with him going to Southern. And then the addition of Hugh Jackson, quite honestly. And again, I think Prairie View is going to take a step back. So quite honestly, I will say I think let's see, that's tough. I'm going to go with Southern this year to win the Bayou Classic and to win the SWAC West. And I think that they meet up again in Tallahassee with FAMU. So, I think that's how it'll go. And I think FAMU can beat Southern. It's hard to beat a team twice, I'll say that. And I think that's where this gets interesting here for the SWAC title game and the Celebration Bowl. At this point, I think regardless of how you play this out, I think FAMU's going to have to play somebody twice at this point. So I do think SWAC Championship, you're going to see Southern again in Tallahassee. So I think this will be the last home game. SWAC title, I think, FAMU wins this one as well. It's going to be closer than if it is Southern again, it's going to be closer than what it was in the regular season on November 5th. But I think FAMU does win the SWAC title in year 2 of playing in the SWAC, and that moves you to the Celebration Bowl. So going to the Celebration Bowl now, who do you play from the MEAC? A lot of people are giving Dawson Odoms and Norfolk State love. A lot of people are giving Buddy Pugh and South Carolina State love. Quite honestly, I think right now, because of who they have coming back and the firepower that they've loaded up with, I have to give the edge to South Carolina State and Buddy Pugh because, Buddy Pugh's a master of what he does. And I think he'll have his team ready to kind of make a stab at going for a repeat. So I do think that, it's going to be FAMU and South Carolina State again, a rematch from that October 1st battle in Orangeburg, but this time it'll be in Atlanta. And quite honestly, at that point, you're 11-1, and congrats. At that point, you have your first 11-1 season, your 11th win season since 1998. And at this point, if you can win the Celebration Bowl, you're eyeing the chance to go 12-1, and you're eyeing your first 12-win season since 1978, where what happened? FAMU won the FCS national title. So I think it's hard to beat a team twice, and honestly, we all know the SWAC's luck with playing in the Celebration Bowl, but I do think that FAMU can get it done here as well. I'm going all hands on deck and saying FAMU wins the Celebration Bowl. I think FAMU's going to be HBCU national champions. There won't be a discussion about it or any ifs, ands, or buts about it. So, yeah, 12-1, first time since 1978, you're HBCU national champs. So now we can dive into the nitty-gritty and everything, and we can talk about it now. So as far as players to watch this season on offense, you got to look at, first things first, the QBs. I like both Musa and McKay as both players to watch at quarterback. Rashawn McKay, 22 TDs, 5 interceptions. That's a pretty darn good touchdown to interception ratio. 2,457 yards, an average of 204.75 as far as passing yards per game. Still pretty impressive. You'd like to see the number go up. In total last year, the passing game didn't go over 2,700 yards. I believe it was like 2,600 yards plus or something like that for last season, which is something that needs to be improved on. You want to be in the department of, if you are a passing team and you want to achieve the potential that I know this offense is capable of, and that we all know this offense is capable of, you want to be in the neighborhood of like 3,700 to 4,000 yards, quite honestly. And I think that's where your QB battle comes into play. So I guess I can go ahead and answer the question now of, who starts at QB this season? Quite honestly, I'm going to cut it to you like this. And I know some people want to say, Musa needs to start. Jeremy Musa, the SEC transfer, needs to start because, it's just he came from the SEC. I feel more comfortable. He's a grad transfer. He's got 2 more years of eligibility and everything. But quite honestly, look, I'll be real with you. I think whoever can get the job done, whoever is best suited to deliver wins, and who Willie Simmons and the staff trust more is who should be the starter. Quite honestly, I think we'll see a decent dose of Rashawn McKay this season, and I think at some point we will also see Jeremy Musa. With that being said, Musa didn't come from the SEC to the SWAC to sit the pine. I quite fully believe he did not come just for that. He's coming to be a starter. But again, we'll see. Staff will make those decisions. I'm just a guy behind the computer. As well, too, as far as players to watch, Xavier Smith is another player to watch. 713 yards last season, 3 TDs. Jamari Shareed, another player to watch. 622 yards, 9 TDs. I love the amount of TDs he scored. I'd love to see the yardage go up, but yeah, I think with the way this offense is designed, so many weapons are going to draw attention. So everybody's not going to be open consistently. But yeah, as well too, tight end Kamari Young, 140 yards receiving last season, 4 touchdowns. Jermaine Hawkins, true freshman last year, 95 yards, 3 TDs. I think that his presence is going to be felt actually going forward. So that's actually another question. Is Jermaine Hawkins a sleeper that could break out at wide receiver this season? He is, quite honestly. As a true freshman, you had 3 touchdowns. Yeah, I know for a fact you had 1 in the Arkansas Pine Bluff game that was for 90-plus yards, I think, or like an 80-yard TD, like deep bomb. And then you had a TD on homecoming. I'm trying to remember when the third one happened. But I think he's one of those guys that could break out for sure. You have to go with the horses that have kept you in the race, but at the same time, too, you got to look at the future. And I think Jermaine Hawkins is one of those key pieces for the future. And as well, too, you got to look at Leland Wilhoite, who's a star wide receiver. He's listed as a running back, but in the spring game, if you saw it, he lined up in the slot playing wide receiver. He took a couple of jet sweeps. As well, too, running back, you got Terrell Jennings and Jalen McLeod both. Terrell Jennings last season, 517 yards, 5 TDs. I loved the scheme of how to spring him for long runs. And honestly, if there's anybody that does remind me of Mike Allstott, it is Terrell Jennings. Just his ability to not let the first guy bring him down, or hell, even the second guy for that matter, quite honestly. And then also, too, Trevonte Davis, who comes in from Wayne State. And here's his numbers from Wayne State. 686 yards last season, 5 touchdowns. Very impressive, actually. I think that he's going to be a huge key contributor to this offense once he establishes himself as well. But with that being said, too, we can go ahead and swing it over to the defense. And actually, before I switch it over to the defense, I'm going to also point out special teams in the sense, too, as well. Jose Romo Martinez, who handled triple duty, honestly. Kudos to him. He handled the punting duties, kickoffs, and as well, too, punting, kicking, and kickoffs, triple duty. 9 of 12, along with 51. I couldn't find his extra point statistics online, but I'm pretty sure he was basically damn near perfect. I think he is the best kicker in the FCS, and I think once Chris Fadul comes back from his ACL tear, this is going to be the best special teams unit in the SWAC. And honestly, I think this is the slept-on aspect of it all that I know Willie Simmons has mastered and stuff, because this, like I said, the best special teams unit in the FCS. Now, as far as defensive players to watch, you got to start with Isaiah Land. Last season, 19 sacks, 32 solo tackles, 25 tackles for loss. As well, too, you have the other guys coming back, Gentle Hunt, BJ Bowler, Javon Morgan, and also to Lovey Jenkins, the Louisville transfer, comes back for another year. BJ Bowler led the club in interceptions, 44 interceptions, 41 solo tackles. Javon Morgan right behind him, 3 interceptions, 13 solo tackles. It's actually kind of funny and ironic. Everybody after the Orange Blossom Classic was giving BJ Bowler such a tough time and stuff. And now, would you look at it, you get to the end of the season, he led the team in interceptions with 4, and then ended up taking Florida Classic MVP for his interception and his scoop and score, fumble recovery. And now he's also getting love from the Las Vegas Raiders, and he's also getting love from the Buffalo Bills. It's kind of funny how that works out. So I think a lot of you may owe BJ Bowler an apology, because dude's balling. And I expect nothing less this season. I think he's going to have an impact again this season. Honestly, I'd got to give him a shot at punt returns, if you ask me. As well, too, also, you have to talk about the transfers on the defensive side of the ball that could have an immediate impact this season. Jordan Moore, the JUCO transfer coming in from Texas. Not the University of Texas, but the state of Texas. Isaiah Major, 38 total tackles, where he was last year, 22 solo. Eric Horn, linebacker transfer from Iowa State, 15 total tackles, 7 solo. Couldn't find his 2021 stats, but those are his 2020 stats as far as tackles and solos. And also, too, Kamani King, who had 8 total tackles last year, 4 of them solo. Couldn't find his 2021 stats either, but his 2020 stats, that's what it showed. But, the transfers here are endless. You look at the other transfers that have come in to this program outside of Jordan Moore, Kamani King, and Isaiah Connolly is another one. You have Destin Coates, who I think is going to miss this season with a torn ACL. Lamar Mullins, who's a DB transfer coming in from Tulsa. You have James Ash, the Wake Forest transfer, as it does come across your screen too, by the way. And then you have Kobe Gross, who's the FSU tight end JUCO transfer, who I think will also have an immediate impact in this offense. there's so much depth on this team with JUCO transfers and young guys that have been developed that are coming up. That I do think that's part of the reason why I think FAMU has as great of a chance this season as ever to win the Celebration Bowl and be crowned HBCU national champs. You also got to point to the impact freshmen, so that's actually the next question here. So funny how it just rolls along. Which impact freshmen could break out? For me, I'm looking at a couple of them. You have Kareem Berg, Zaire Riley, who is short but can pack a punch. He's 5'6", I believe. You have Mike Walton. You have TJ Demis, who's from Pinellas County, CCC. I only know that because I used to play at CCC back in high school. Wayne Quinn also comes in could be a potential impact freshman. Quite honestly, I like Kareem Berg and Zaire Riley to come in and make some immediate impacts as well. People are going to test Zaire Riley because he's 5'6", but I wouldn't just because he's 5'6", I wouldn't sell him short, quite honestly. But yeah, those are my guys that I think could be impact freshmen coming in this season. And then also too, I can't forget the other one on offense. As far as offense goes, he's been battling injuries and stuff, but I think this season he's going to have a big year as well. So I think this is the year that he finally breaks through. Nick Dixon at tight end. That tight end room is stacked. Linebacker room stacked. Wide receiver room stacked. In the QB room, you've got Jimbo Fisher's son, Trey Fisher, who comes in from UT Martin. That room is stacked. My God, they're, like I said, quality depth at every position on this team, and you love to see it. And I think that's what's going to carry FAMU this season, along with having what I saw last year and what I like to point out from last year, mental toughness, the ability to make key plays late in games, late in the season, whereas I didn't see a lot of guys and a lot of teams doing that. I didn't see Alabama A&M doing that in their game against FAMU because, honestly, last year there were points in that game where I thought Alabama A&M should just put the game away, but they couldn't. But FAMU was able to make the key plays. Same thing can be said in the game against Southern. FAMU had the mental toughness to make those key plays late in the season and put games away. And that's what separates good teams from great teams. That little extra 25% that you can give. So a couple more questions before we get out of here. How good will the Dark Clouds defense be? Quite honestly, I think that they could be better. They had a run of I don't know how many games between 2019 and 2021 where they had, I think, 15 plus turnovers, like at least where they had one turnover, like per game. So I'd expect the Dark Clouds defense to be a nationally ranked defense again, quite honestly. Is there a wide receiver that could eclipse 1,000 yards? I want to say there is. If there is anybody that could do it, it's Xavier Smith. But I know two teams are going to scheme for him, quite honestly. So I don't know. I don't know. You'd love to see it, but again, there's so many weapons on this offense that you're going to want to spread the wealth around in so many different ways that guys can get open. So with that, I'm just going to leave you, I don't know. If you feel there's somebody that could eclipse 1,000 yards in this receiving core, comment down below on this video. As well, what other facility upgrades would you like to see happen with FAMU's athletic department? And leave a comment below for this one too. So for me personally, a lot of people may not agree with this. Well, I know everybody has differing opinions with this too. But I look around the world of college sports. The one thing that a lot of schools have is, and if you don't believe me, look for yourself. Hell, you can go right across the street to Florida State and find it. An athletes only dining hall, or the training table, as some would call it, where only athletes can go in there. So I would love to see that be built for not just the football team, but for basketball, baseball, softball, tennis, golf. all those guys, because I do feel like though like what they consume should, quite honestly, and again, this is going to make some people upset, and everybody's got an opinion, and that's fine. What the athletes eat should be better quality than what the rest of the student population eats, because that's fuel that you need to carry you to go to class and to carry you on the playing field and improve your performance. But again, that's my opinion. That might make some people sensitive. Look, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I'm going to leave it at that. As well, too, one final question is, will we see any Rattlers get drafted in the 2023 NFL Draft? I believe you can. I believe Isaiah Land could definitely get drafted. I believe someone like B.J. Bowler and Xavier Smith and Jamari Shareed, I believe this is Shareed's final season, could all get drafted. For a guy like Isaiah Land and B.J. Bowler and company, it's going to be vital. And I know me and Ace talked about this actually on a podcast. Senior Bowl, Reese's Senior Bowl guys tend to get drafted more than guys that go play in, say, the East-West Shrine game, or quite honestly, I know it's new, but the HBC Legacy Bowl. So I think it is vital that if Isaiah Land can get an invite to the Reese's Senior Bowl in Mobile, I think that he has a chance to get drafted. I'd say the same for B.J. Bowler as well. And I think it is criminal that Jerry Jones and his guys decided to wait immediately till after the draft to pick up Marquise Bell. I felt like he should have been drafted, quite honestly, and I thought it was dumb on Jerry Jones's part. But again, this is why Jerry Jones has gone over like 30 years, not over 30 years, but he's gone over like 20 plus years without winning a Super Bowl. And hey, you make your bed, you lie in it. You shouldn't, honestly, hell, he should never fired Jimmy Johnson. But again, that's a discussion for another day. It's not what this is about. But honestly, I will say I'm rooting for Marquise Bell to make the team in Dallas. But yeah, I think, if Isaiah Land can repeat his success from 2021, I think he has a good chance to get drafted. I'd like to see him in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 sacks again this season, between 30 and 40 solo tackles, somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 30 tackles for loss. I would love to see something like that again. And I think if he does that, he's a shoo-in to get drafted, most definitely. But folks, we've reached the end of this. As you know, that's going to do it for me. If you have not already, make sure you follow us on all of our social media platforms down below in the ticker, going across the bottom of the screen. I know 2019, I predicted FAMU would go 9-2. I was right on the money. The only thing I was wrong about was I felt like they were going to beat Jackson State, but they lost to Jackson State. And then I felt like they were going to lose to Alabama A&M, and they beat Alabama A&M. So I had those two games off. But I also thought they were going to lose to USF too. But quite honestly, I'm going to stick to my guns here. 12-1 this season. I think that I'm going all hands on deck here with my prediction. I think this is about as good of a year as any to win the HBCU national title, win the Celebration Bowl. But that's going to do it for me, folks. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy bringing you this content. We're going to still be live doing countdown to kickoffs and stuff, breaking down, FAMU and their opponents this season for 2022. I'll be down in Miami. I'll be at homecoming. I'll be at the Florida Classic. If they make it to the Celebration Bowl, I'll be there. SWAC Championship, I'll be there for that as well, if it is in Tallahassee. But thank you so much for watching. We enjoy it. Again, if you have not already, follow us on all of our social media platforms. Stay safe, stay blessed.